Just bugging.
Good day, all you bug lovers out there. This is G-Man, just bugging. I was working on this today and putting back. I'm going to try to straighten out that tie rod end because I'm tired of waiting on the other one. I want to see how it feels and try to loosen up this front end. It's so tight. I mean, I know everything's new. It's going to bind for a little while until everything just settles in. So I want to deal with that today, get some drivability on it, see how it's handling and everything, and try to get it to toe in, toe out just right while straightening that a little bit. I'm going to free up the tie rod ends so that when and write down how much it takes to take them off, how many turns, and then go ahead and adjust this front end with that. So then when the new one comes in, I'll be able to spin the tie rod ends to the right, setting that this originally had, and then I'll be closer when I do an alignment. Well, I wanted to inspect the rear brakes. He said he heard a clunking noise when he was applying the park brake or applying the brakes and backing up or something. And first thing I noticed is these drums came off quite easy, so they were out of adjustment. I've adjusted them, so it's they're going to seat a little bit. They really weren't even touching, as you can see. They were way out of adjustment. So I got this one adjusted. Let's see, just a slight amount of drag on both pads. That's good. Then I got over here, and I was looking at it. It's just same as the other side, new master cylinder and everything. Went to adjust it, and commonly this happens. These adjusters are frozen. So I put some PV blaster on it, heat it up with an old trusty heat gun. Just held it there for a while till all of the PV blaster dried up, and then I sprayed it some more and went to that side and just kept on going. And now, as you can see, it moves. There we go. So that's what his clunking was. Is that other one was hitting the drum sooner, and on this one you'd hear it hit later, and then that one would release. One would grab before the other, of course. That was most likely what his clunking was, because I don't see any other issues in here, and I can also tell that the pads weren't seating properly, especially on that other side. But they both had their issues, but nothing I can't fix right here without any parts. But I do notice the last couple days when I put these lines on, brake lines on the master, I did notice that this front grommet is leaking, and I cleaned it up and dried it off, and it's still weeping around the grommet here. I had that same problem with my son's Mazda. I put a master on it, and like every 2 weeks or so, you say his clutch didn't feel right, and it was losing its prime, and I'd bleed it off again. And I didn't see any leaks, but it was sucking air from the rubber grommet, which the reservoir is set right on top of the two grommets, unlike this with some lines. So he was still under warranty, so I just pulled it out and took it back to AutoZone, got a replacement, put it back on. I haven't had a problem since, but I don't want to see that happening here, because it's leaking and it's going to suck air. So he's going to come over and take a look at it and see it. I'm not going to clean anything right now, so you can see what's happening. And luckily I have one on the shelf. It was for my car, but I don't want him to have to wait for a part, so I'll just sell him mine. Alright, I got my new brake master in here. The other one's weeping at the seal here, and I can't seem to wait for the tie rod in. It's not coming until the 24th, Christmas Eve, of course. So I straightened this out as much as I could, and actually one side's locked up. The tie rod end will not free up. I heated it up, everything, but it's bent anyway. So the tube's bent anyways, whatever. I extended this one out some, and I remember what I extended it so I can put the other one back in and get it close to where front alignment will be fine. Right now I got it at a 1/4 inch towed in on the front, which is fine. That'll work. Because I want to drive this. I adjusted the steering. I want to see how the new gearbox is working. You know, unlocked. I loosened up the locking nut on this gearbox and adjusted it down, and then backed it off about 1/8 of turns from what I have here. That's the best rule of thumb, especially right off of the bat, a brand new gearbox. So I'm going to try that out, get a feel of it. I got it together enough to where it's safe to drive. I'm going to put my fuel tank in here. I just wanted to show you all this is something I like to do. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to come in here and get it, but it's just a, you know, a second protection for my fuel pump and my carburetor. I like to put a filter up here also, and especially, you know, a clear one that I can see, so I can just glance in here and see how it's looking and change that one out, you know. But if you forget it's there and you're having a fuel delivery issue, you got to remember that this is down here. But I just like to do that to all my bugs. Alrighty, I'm going to get this fuel tank back in here and get back with y'all, and we'll go for a drive. Still a lot putting in the steering. Well, as you recall in a earlier video, I was replacing many parts of the suspension and the gearbox. Well, I learned a lesson. I've never actually had to buy a VW gearbox. I've never had any problems other than, you know, some play and I need to adjust it out. I've never had one completely wore out that I needed to replace. Well, when I went to order one, you know, it was kind of on a limited budget, the individual that owns the car, as to what he wanted to spend right now, and all the things I need to do. So we saw that the prices varied greatly. I mean, from like $80 to $550 for a gearbox. So apparently you can't go the shortcut route, you know, the cheap route, because the $82 one just ain't gonna cut it. I mean, I've adjusted it. See, it's already adjusted off. It's just too tight. And then when you adjust it down, the set screw, you adjust it down, it just gets real tight. And if you don't, you back it off, it's still kind of tight and a grindy feel. And it's lubricated and everything. But you can't get the play out. It's got an awful lot of play. I mean, it's worse than this one. So you can see this is the original one. It's been adjusted as far as it can go. The screws all the way in. This came off of a wrecked 72 Beetle, my son's, and it's still in good shape. I've replaced the tie rod ends on his and got the play out of it and everything, and it had like 1 inch of play in the steering. It was great, perfect. And so I took this one off of his, cleaned it all up, opened it up, looked at it, everything looks fine. I blew out all the old grease in it, re-greased it, and painted it. And we're just going to go with this one and just, you know, call it a lesson learned. Don't go cheap on a gearbox. So I'm going to install this gearbox today. I was trying to get a feel of the car. I've been waiting on this right side tie rod because the tube's bent, and that tie rod end will not, it's frozen in there. It will not come out. It's been crimped so many times. So I was wanting to really get a feel of the gearbox. I'm glad I did all that, because I see that everything else is fine. The suspension does sit high, but I've been told that that's what happens when you replace all of this. It's going to take a while for it to settle, and it was kind of high in the first place, but now it's really stiff. But when I drove it and slammed on the brakes, of course I replaced the master and adjusted all the brakes and found an adjuster frozen on the back right. Freed that one up, and the brakes were fine. It stopped really well, and the front suspension dipped down, didn't sway to the right or the left. It just nailed it. But like I said, I wasn't happy with the steering gearbox. So, and I'm waiting on a coupler too. It's been hell trying to get parts with the holiday season, of course. But that's, the tie rod end's supposed to come in today, and I don't know, it could be up to the 30th for the coupler. But I'm going to put it all in today, get to adjust it. I had my alignment good with that. Of course, I'm going to have to readjust everything. But I think my caster and camber needs a little adjustment there. I'm going to get it as close as I can, and have him take it in for, you know, professional alignment, full alignment. Alright, let's get this bad boy up in here. Alright, some blue Loctite on these bolts. Just a little notch there. Alright, that's bad boy tight. And now we're back to a good serviceable original VW gearbox. And lesson learned: don't go cheap, or think you're gonna go cheap. But I am gonna look into rebuilding that old gearbox. One more for, see, much better. Yeah, you couldn't even move that with the other one. Alright, hook up my left side, tie right in. Alright, I've got the gearbox on. Get my left tie rod hooked up to the fitment arm, and now I'm gonna hook up this hockey puck of a steering coupler here, because I still want to drive this thing before the new coupler comes in, so I can make some adjustments and everything and get a feel of it now, so I don't have to wait. I need to get this thing up in the air so I can steer it. I'll be glad when I get some concrete. Years in the Army, you learn how to make do and still get the same results. Well, there will be no working during drinking hours. And that's a just bugging management rule there. So I can't work anymore. Besides, the parts haven't come in for the 69 Beetle. So I'm going to have a beer and then get back to doing some welding on it. Well, when the parts get in, we'll get back to it, and I'll give it an alignment, and we'll go over some camber caster instructions on these, and see what we got. I hope y'all like the new introduction to the video, and stay tuned for more on the 69 Beetle. This is Greg, out for Just Bugging.